What if confidence wasn't about what others thought of you, but about the quiet strength you cultivate within? What if the key to unshakable self-assurance wasn't found in applause or achievements, but in mastering your own mind? These are the questions Stoicism invites us to explore, a philosophy that has guided thinkers, leaders, and everyday individuals for centuries. Marcus Aurelius, one of history's most renowned Stoics, once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." It's a simple yet profound reminder. True confidence doesn't rely on external validation. It's built on inner resilience, self-awareness, and a deep understanding of what you can control. In this video, we'll dive into 20 timeless Stoic lessons that can help you build long-term confidence, not the fleeting kind that fades with the next challenge, but the enduring kind that stays with you no matter what life throws your way. Each lesson is designed to be practical and actionable, offering you tools to strengthen your mindset, embrace uncertainty, and face adversity with courage. Whether you're navigating a personal struggle, aiming to grow in your career, or simply seeking a more grounded sense of self, these principles will guide you toward a more confident, empowered version of yourself. So, let's begin this journey together and discover how Stoicism can transform not just how you see the world, but how you see yourself. Confidence begins with understanding what's truly within your power. This is the cornerstone of Stoic philosophy, encapsulated in what's known as the Dichotomy of Control. The Stoics, particularly thinkers like Epictetus, taught that life is divided into two categories: things we can control and things we cannot. Our thoughts, actions, and responses, those are within our control. External events, other people's opinions, or the outcomes of our efforts, those are not. And here's the key insight: when we focus on what we can control, we build resilience. When we waste energy on what we can't, we create unnecessary frustration and self-doubt. Take criticism at work, for example. Imagine you've poured your heart into a project only to receive harsh feedback from a colleague. It's easy to spiral into self-criticism or resentment, but Stoicism offers a different path. Instead of fixating on the criticism itself, which is outside your control, you can focus on your response. How will you process the feedback? Will you let it derail your confidence, or will you use it as an opportunity to grow? By shifting your focus inward, you reclaim your power and maintain your sense of self-worth, even in challenging situations. Epictetus famously said, "Some things are within our power while others are not." This simple yet profound idea reminds us that true confidence doesn't come from controlling every outcome, but from mastering our internal world. So here's a question to reflect on. What's one situation in your life where shifting your focus to what you can control could change your perspective? By practicing this Stoic principle, you'll find that confidence isn't about eliminating challenges, it's about meeting them with clarity and calm. Marcus Aurelius, one of history's most renowned Stoic philosophers, often reflected on the fleeting nature of life. In his personal writings, he reminded himself that everything, our possessions, our relationships, even our own lives, is temporary. This might sound unsettling at first, but there's profound power in embracing this truth. When we accept that nothing lasts forever, we free ourselves from the paralyzing grip of fear. Instead of clinging to what we can't control, we learn to focus on what truly matters, how we choose to respond to the ever-changing world around us. Think about it. How often do we hold back because we're afraid of losing something or failing? Maybe it's a job, a relationship, or a dream. But when we internalize the Stoic principle of impermanence, we start to see uncertainty not as a threat, but as a natural part of life. It's like standing on the shore of a river, watching the water flow by. You can't stop it, but you can learn to navigate its currents with confidence. This idea is just as relevant today as it was in Marcus Aurelius' time. Consider modern challenges like career changes or shifting relationship dynamics. So many of us resist change because we fear the unknown. But what if we saw these moments as opportunities for growth rather than obstacles? Seneca, another Stoic thinker, put it beautifully. The greatest obstacle to living is expectancy, which hangs upon tomorrow and loses today. In other words, when we stop overthinking the future and start living fully in the present, we unlock a deeper sense of confidence and purpose. One practical way to apply this lesson is through journaling. Take a few moments to write about what truly matters to you. What do you want to prioritize in your life, knowing that time is limited? This exercise isn't about dwelling on loss, it's about clarifying your values and focusing your energy on what's meaningful. When you align your actions with what truly matters, you'll find that confidence grows naturally, even in the face of uncertainty. So, here's a question to reflect on. How would your confidence grow if you embraced the idea that nothing lasts forever? What would you do differently if you truly believed that change isn't something to fear, but something to navigate with courage and clarity? How well do you truly know yourself? It's a question that might seem simple, but the answer can shape the way you move through the world. Stoicism teaches us that self-awareness isn't just about knowing your likes and dislikes, it's about understanding your thoughts, emotions, and values deeply enough to align your actions with what truly matters to you. This isn't just a philosophical exercise, it's a practical tool for building long-term confidence. Take Marcus Aurelius, one of history's most famous Stoics. His personal writings, known as meditations, were never meant for public eyes. Instead, they were his way of reflecting on his own behavior, emotions, and decisions. He questioned himself constantly. Was he living in accordance with his values? Was he letting external pressures dictate his actions? This kind of introspection wasn't about self-criticism, it was about self-mastery. By holding a mirror up to his own mind, Marcus Aurelius cultivated the clarity and confidence to lead an empire with purpose. So, how can you apply this to your own life? Start by identifying your core values. What principles guide your decisions? What kind of person do you want to be? These questions are the foundation of self-awareness. Once you have a clear sense of your values, you can begin to align your actions with them. For example, if you value honesty, ask yourself, are you being truthful, not just with others, but with yourself? If you value resilience, are you pushing through challenges or letting fear hold you back? One powerful way to track your progress is through journaling. Each day, take a few minutes to reflect on your emotional responses and decisions. Did you react with anger in a situation where patience would have served you better? Did you act out of fear when courage was needed? Writing these reflections down helps you see patterns over time, patterns that reveal where you're growing and where you still have work to do. This isn't about perfection, it's about progress. Every small step toward greater self-awareness builds your confidence because you're no longer operating on autopilot. You're making intentional choices, so here's a question to consider. What's one area of your life where greater self-awareness could lead to more confidence? Maybe it's in your relationships, where understanding your triggers could help you communicate more effectively. Or perhaps it's in your career, where knowing your strengths and weaknesses could guide you toward opportunities that truly align with your values. Whatever it is, take a moment to reflect, because when you know yourself deeply, you stop second-guessing your decisions. You start trusting your ability to navigate life's challenges with clarity and conviction. And that's where true confidence begins. Preparing for the worst might sound counterintuitive when it comes to building confidence, but the Stoics believed it to be one of the most powerful tools in their arsenal. This practice, known as premeditatio malorum, or the premeditation of evils, is about mentally rehearsing potential challenges or setbacks before they happen. It's not about dwelling on negativity or expecting the worst. It's about reducing fear and building resilience by facing those possibilities head-on. As Seneca once said, "He who has anticipated the coming of troubles takes away their power when they arrive." By imagining what could go wrong, you strip those scenarios of their ability to surprise or overwhelm you. Think of it like this: if you're about to have a difficult conversation with someone, you might feel anxious or unsure of how it will go. But what if you took a moment to visualize the worst-case scenario? Maybe the conversation doesn't go well, or perhaps the other person reacts negatively. By mentally preparing for that outcome, you're no longer caught off guard if it happens. Instead, you've already thought through how you'd respond, and that preparation gives you a sense of control and calm. This practice isn't just about preparing for big, life-altering events, it's also useful for everyday challenges. Maybe it's a presentation at work, a tough workout, or even a social event that's making you nervous. By visualizing the obstacles and how you'd handle them, you're not only building confidence in your ability to adapt, but you're also training your mind to stay steady under pressure. So here's a question to reflect on. What's one challenge in your life right now that you could mentally prepare for? What steps would you take to face it with confidence? Remember, the goal isn't to fear the future, it's to meet it with strength. When you've already imagined the worst, everything else feels manageable. Let's talk about rejection for a moment. We've all been there, applying for a job, asking someone out, or pitching an idea only to hear, "No, it stings." But what if I told you that rejection or any setback isn't the end of the road? In fact, it's often the beginning of something far more meaningful. This is where emotional resilience comes in, and Stoicism has some powerful tools to help us build it. Stoicism teaches us that we can't control what happens to us, but we can control how we respond. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, put it simply: it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Think about that for a second. When life throws a curveball, whether it's rejection, failure, or criticism, we have a choice. We can let it crush us, or we can see it as an opportunity to grow stronger, wiser, and more resilient. Here's a practical way to put this into action. Take a recent setback you've experienced. Maybe it's that job rejection or a project that didn't go as planned. Instead of dwelling on what went wrong, ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can this experience make me better? This is called reframing, and it's a cornerstone of Stoic practice. By shifting your perspective, you're not denying the difficulty of the situation. You're choosing to see it as a stepping stone rather than a stumbling block. Now let's bring this back to confidence. When you start viewing challenges as opportunities, something incredible happens. You stop fearing failure because you know it's not the end, it's part of the process. Over time, this mindset builds a deep, unshakable confidence. You begin to trust yourself more, knowing that no matter what life throws at you, you've got the tools to handle it. So here's a question to reflect on. How could viewing challenges as opportunities strengthen your confidence? Think about a situation where you've hesitated or held back because you were afraid of failing. What would change if you saw that potential failure not as a threat but as a chance to grow? The more you practice this mindset, the more resilient and confident you'll become. And that's the kind of confidence that lasts. Imagine this: you're stuck in traffic, running late for an important meeting. The car in front of you cuts you off, and frustration starts to bubble up. Your heart races, your jaw tightens, and your mind spirals into anger. But here's the question: does that anger serve you? The Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." This simple yet profound idea is at the heart of Stoicism, a reminder that while we can't always control external events, we can always control our responses to them. Think about it, the traffic jam, the rude comment, the unexpected setback, these are all outside your control. But your reaction, that's where your power lies. Stoicism teaches us to pause, to create a mental space between the event and our response. In that space, we can choose how to act rather than being swept away by emotion. Let's take a modern example. Say someone makes a snide remark about your work. Your first instinct might be to lash out or shrink back, but what if instead you paused? What if you took a deep breath and asked yourself, is this comment worth my energy? Does it define me, or is it just noise? By shifting your focus from the remark to your reaction, you reclaim control. One practical way to master your reactions is through journaling. At the end of each day, reflect on moments where your emotions got the better of you. What triggered them? How did you respond? Could you have handled it differently? Over time, this practice helps you identify patterns and build the mental discipline to respond with intention rather than impulse. So, here's a challenge for you. What's one situation in your life where mastering your reaction could boost your confidence? Maybe it's a tough conversation, a stressful work deadline, or even a personal habit you're trying to change. Remember, every moment is an opportunity to practice Stoic wisdom, to choose your response, and in doing so, shape your character. The more you exercise this control, the more unshakable your confidence becomes. What does it mean to live a virtuous life? At its core, Stoicism teaches that virtue is the highest good, the foundation of a meaningful and confident existence. The Stoics believed virtue isn't just about doing the right thing. It's about embodying wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance in every action, no matter how small or significant. These four pillars aren't abstract ideals. They're practical tools for navigating life's challenges with clarity and strength. Marcus Aurelius, one of Stoicism's most famous practitioners, often reflected on the importance of aligning his actions with moral integrity, even when it was inconvenient or uncomfortable. He understood that true confidence doesn't come from external achievements, but from the knowledge that you've acted in accordance with your deepest values. Imagine you're faced with a difficult decision at work. Maybe you've discovered a colleague has taken credit for your ideas. The easy path might be to stay silent to avoid conflict. But the virtuous path, guided by justice and courage, would be to address the situation honestly and respectfully. It's not about winning or losing. It's about staying true to what's right, even when it's hard. Making that choice, no matter how uncomfortable, strengthens your sense of self-worth because you know you've acted with integrity. So, how could living more virtuously enhance your sense of self-worth? When you consistently align your actions with wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance, you build a foundation of trust in yourself. You begin to see that confidence isn't something you need to chase. It's something you cultivate, one virtuous decision at a time. True confidence comes from within, not from others' opinions. This might sound like a simple truth, but in a world that constantly pressures us to seek approval, it's one of the hardest lessons to live by. Stoicism, at its core, teaches us to anchor our sense of worth in our own judgment rather than the fleeting applause or criticism of others. Seneca, one of Stoicism's greatest minds, once said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." That's especially true when we tie our self-worth to external validation. We imagine what others think of us, we fear their disapproval, and we chase their praise, often at the cost of our own peace of mind. Think about how this plays out in modern life. Social media, for example, has turned validation seeking into a daily habit. We post, we wait, we refresh, and we measure our worth by likes, comments, and shares. But here's the question: does a lack of engagement on a post truly diminish your value? Stoicism would argue no. Your worth isn't tied to the number of followers you have or the opinions of strangers online. It's rooted in your character, your actions, and your ability to live in alignment with your values. Detaching from external validation doesn't mean you stop caring about others or become indifferent to feedback. It's about shifting your focus. Instead of asking, "What will people think?" ask yourself, "Am I acting with integrity? Am I staying true to who I am?" When you start answering these questions, you'll find a deeper, more enduring form of confidence, one that doesn't waver with the winds of public opinion. So let's make this personal. What's one area of your life where you could detach from seeking validation? Maybe it's at work, where you constantly feel the need to prove yourself. Maybe it's in your relationships, where you worry about being liked or accepted. Or perhaps it's even in your hobbies, where you hesitate to pursue something you love because you fear judgment. Whatever it is, take a moment to reflect. How much energy are you spending on seeking approval? And what could you do with that energy if you redirected it toward building your inner confidence? Stoicism reminds us that the only opinion that truly matters is the one we hold of ourselves. When we stop looking outward for validation and start trusting our own judgment, we unlock a level of confidence that no one can take away. It's not easy, but it's worth it, because true confidence isn't about being admired. It's about being unshakable, no matter what the world throws your way. Picture this: a young Marcus Aurelius, destined to become one of Rome's greatest emperors, yet plagued by chronic illness and the weight of his responsibilities. Instead of succumbing to despair, he wrote in his personal journal, later known as Meditations, that obstacles are not barriers but opportunities. He saw adversity as the forge where character is shaped, a teacher that reveals our strengths and refines our weaknesses. Stoicism teaches us that hardship isn't something to avoid, it's something to embrace, because it's through struggle that we grow. Think about it. Every challenge you face, whether it's a setback at work, a personal loss, or even a failed project, is an invitation to become more resilient. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." In other words, the very things that seem to block your path can become the tools you use to build confidence and strength. Let's bring this into the modern world. Imagine you've poured months into a project at work only to see it fail. It's easy to feel defeated, but Stoicism asks you to shift your perspective. What lessons can you take from that failure? Did it teach you better planning, resilience under pressure, or how to adapt when things don't go as expected? These are skills you wouldn't have gained if everything had gone perfectly. So, what's one challenge you've faced that has made you stronger? Maybe it was a difficult conversation, a career setback, or even a personal loss. Reflect on that moment. How did it shape you? Stoicism reminds us that adversity isn't the enemy. It's the mentor we didn't know we needed. By embracing it, we don't just survive life's difficulties, we thrive because of them. How often do you pause to truly appreciate what you already have? In a world that constantly pushes us to want more, Stoicism offers a refreshing perspective. Gratitude isn't just a nice-to-have, it's a powerful tool for building long-term confidence and contentment. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, once said, "He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has." This simple yet profound idea reminds us that our perspective shapes our reality. When we focus on what we lack, we feel small and uncertain. But when we shift our attention to what we already possess, we cultivate a sense of abundance and self-assurance. Gratitude in Stoic philosophy isn't about denying challenges or pretending everything is perfect. It's about recognizing the value in what we have, no matter how small, and using that recognition to anchor ourselves in the present. For example, keeping a gratitude journal is a modern practice that aligns beautifully with this Stoic principle. Each day, writing down even one thing you're grateful for, whether it's a supportive friend, a skill you've developed, or simply the opportunity to grow through a difficult experience, can slowly rewire your mindset. Over time, this practice helps you see that confidence isn't just about external achievements. It's about appreciating the internal resources and relationships that sustain you. So let's take a moment to reflect. What's one thing you're grateful for that boosts your confidence? Maybe it's a skill you've honed through hard work, a relationship that grounds you, or even the resilience you've built by overcoming past challenges. When you identify that source of gratitude, you're not just acknowledging it, you're reinforcing the foundation of your confidence. And as the Stoics would remind us, true confidence doesn't come from chasing external validation. It grows from the quiet, steady practice of appreciating what's already within and around you. A cluttered life leads to a cluttered mind. This simple truth is at the heart of Lesson 11, and it's a principle Stoics like Seneca lived by. Seneca often warned against the dangers of excess, whether it's too many possessions, commitments, or distractions. He believed that when we overload our lives, we dilute our ability to focus on what truly matters. Think about it. When your physical space is chaotic or your schedule is overflowing, it's hard to find clarity or peace. Your energy gets scattered and your confidence takes a hit because you're constantly reacting instead of intentionally directing your life. So, what does Stoic simplicity look like in practice? It's not about living in austerity or denying yourself joy. It's about stripping away the non-essentials so you can focus on what brings real value. For instance, take a look at your schedule. How many of those commitments are truly meaningful, and how many are just filling space? Or consider your possessions. Do they serve a purpose or do they weigh you down? Seneca would argue that excess doesn't make us happier. It just creates more noise, making it harder to hear our own thoughts. Here's a practical exercise. Choose one area of your life to simplify. Maybe it's your closet, your to-do list, or even your social media use. Start small. Remove one thing that no longer serves you and notice how it feels to let go. You might be surprised at how much lighter and more in control you feel. Simplifying isn't just about creating physical space, it's about creating mental space. And that mental space is where confidence grows. So here's a question to reflect on. What's one area of your life you could simplify to feel more confident? Take a moment to think about it. What's one thing you could let go of today to make room for what truly matters? Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Confine yourself to the present." These simple yet profound words capture a cornerstone of Stoic philosophy, the power of mindfulness and presence. In a world filled with distractions, regrets about the past, and anxieties about the future, Stoicism reminds us that true confidence is built by anchoring ourselves in the here and now. Think about it. When you're fully present, you're not weighed down by what you can't control. Instead, you're free to act with clarity and purpose. Consider a modern example. Imagine someone struggling with anxiety before a big presentation. Their mind races with thoughts about what could go wrong or how they might be judged. But what if, instead of focusing on those uncertainties, they chose to ground themselves in the present moment? They might notice the feeling of their feet on the floor, the rhythm of their breath, or the way their voice resonates in the room. This shift in focus can dissolve fear, replacing it with a quiet confidence rooted in the reality of the moment. Stoicism teaches us that the present is the only moment we truly have control over. The past is gone and the future is uncertain. But right now, in this very second, we have the power to choose how we respond, how we think, and how we act. To practice this, try a simple 5-minute mindfulness exercise. Sit quietly, close your eyes if it helps, and bring your attention to your breath. Notice the rise and fall of your chest, the sensation of air entering and leaving your body. When your mind wanders, and it will gently guide it back to the present, over time, this practice can help you cultivate a deeper sense of calm and confidence, no matter what challenges you face. So here's a question to reflect on. How could focusing on the present moment improve your confidence? Could it help you feel more grounded during stressful situations? More in tune with your abilities? The beauty of Stoicism is that it doesn't just offer abstract ideas. It gives us tools to transform our lives one mindful moment at a time. Picture this: you've been looking forward to a trip for months. Your bags are packed, your itinerary is set, and you're ready to go. But as you arrive at the airport, you find out your flight has been cancelled. No warning, no explanation, just a sudden, frustrating change of plans. How do you react? Do you let anger take over, or do you pause, take a deep breath, and accept what's happened? This is where Stoic wisdom steps in, teaching us the power of acceptance, especially when faced with things we cannot change. Stoicism, at its core, is about understanding what's within our control and what isn't. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, put it simply: some things are within our power while others are not. The cancelled flight, that's outside your control. But your reaction to it, that's entirely up to you. By focusing on what you can influence, your mindset, your response, you free yourself from the weight of frustration and resistance. Think about it. How much energy do we waste fighting against things we can't change? A missed opportunity, a sudden setback, or even a rainy day can feel like a personal attack if we let it. But Stoicism invites us to shift our perspective. Instead of resisting, we can choose to accept. This doesn't mean giving up or being passive. It means recognizing that some things simply are what they are, and our peace comes from how we respond. Take, for example, a missed promotion at work. It's easy to feel defeated, to dwell on what went wrong or what could have been. But Stoicism reminds us that the outcome wasn't in our hands. What is in our hands is how we move forward. Do we let bitterness take root, or do we accept the situation, learn from it, and focus on the next step? Acceptance isn't about resignation, it's about reclaiming your power to choose your response. So, here's a question to reflect on. What's one situation in your life where you could practice greater acceptance? Maybe it's a relationship that didn't go as planned, a goal that feels out of reach, or even something as small as a traffic jam. How might your perspective shift if you stopped resisting and started accepting? What small habits could transform your confidence over time? Think about it. Confidence isn't something that appears overnight. It's built piece by piece through consistent, disciplined action. This is where Stoicism shines, offering timeless wisdom on the power of daily habits. Marcus Aurelius, one of history's most renowned Stoic philosophers, understood this deeply. He didn't just preach about discipline, he lived it. Every morning he would rise early, reflect on his purpose, and prepare himself mentally for the challenges of the day. His routines weren't grand or flashy, they were simple, intentional, and repeated every single day. And that repetition, that's where the magic happens. In our modern world, it's easy to get caught up in the idea that confidence comes from big, dramatic actions. But Stoicism reminds us that it's the small, consistent habits that lay the foundation for lasting growth. Take something as simple as a morning routine. Maybe it's 5 minutes of journaling, a short meditation, or even just making your bed. These might seem trivial, but over time they compound. Each small act of discipline reinforces your ability to take control of your life, and that's where true confidence begins to grow. So, what's one habit you could adopt to build long-term confidence? It doesn't have to be complicated. Start small, but start today. Maybe it's committing to a daily walk, setting aside time to read, or practicing gratitude before bed. Whatever it is, the key is consistency. Each day you stick to your habit, you're not just building confidence, you're proving to yourself that you have the strength to follow through, no matter what life throws at you. And that, in itself, is a powerful step toward becoming the person you aspire to be. Failure is not the opposite of success, it's part of the journey. This might sound counterintuitive, but Stoicism teaches us that failure isn't something to fear or avoid. Instead, it's a stepping stone, a teacher in disguise. Seneca, the great Stoic philosopher, once wrote, "Difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body." Think about that for a moment. Every setback, every mistake, every so-called failure is an opportunity to grow stronger, wiser, and more resilient. It's not about what happens to you, but how you respond to it. That's the Stoic mindset in action. Let's take a practical example. Imagine you've just completed a project at work and it didn't go as planned. Maybe you missed a deadline or the results weren't what you hoped for. It's easy to feel defeated, to let that failure define you. But what if, instead of dwelling on what went wrong, you paused and asked yourself, what can I learn from this? Perhaps the missed deadline revealed a need for better time management. Maybe the results highlighted areas where you need to improve your skills. By reframing the failure as feedback, you turn a negative experience into a powerful tool for growth. This is where Stoicism shines. It doesn't promise a life free of failure. No philosophy or way of life can do that. But it does offer a framework for how to respond to failure with clarity and purpose. Instead of seeing it as a reflection of your worth, you see it as a necessary part of the process. Every great achievement is built on a foundation of lessons learned from past mistakes. Thomas Edison didn't invent the light bulb on his first try. He famously said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." That's the spirit of reframing failure. So, what's one failure in your life that you could reframe as feedback? Maybe it's a relationship that didn't work out, a goal you didn't achieve, or a habit you struggled to break. Take a moment to reflect on what that experience taught you. What strengths did you discover in yourself? What weaknesses did it reveal? And most importantly, how can you use that knowledge to move forward with greater confidence and clarity? Failure isn't the end. It's just another chapter in your story, and with the Stoic mindset, you can make it a chapter of growth, not regret. How often do you feel truly at peace with yourself? Not just on the surface, but deep down where the noise of the world can't reach you. For many of us, that kind of peace feels fleeting, something we chase but never quite hold onto. But here's where Stoicism offers a profound truth. Inner peace isn't something you find out there. It's something you cultivate within. It's a skill, a practice, and ultimately a choice. Epictetus, one of Stoicism's greatest teachers, said it plainly. We cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond to them. This is the essence of self-mastery, the ability to remain calm and centered, no matter what life throws your way. Inner peace, as the Stoics saw it, isn't about avoiding challenges or living a stress-free life. It's about developing the mental resilience to face those challenges without being shaken by them. Think about it this way. Imagine you're caught in a storm. The wind is howling, the rain is pouring, and everything around you is chaotic. But instead of fighting the storm or wishing it would stop, you find a way to stand steady in the midst of it. That's what Stoicism teaches us to do, not to control the storm, but to control ourselves within it. In modern terms, this might look like managing stress through Stoic practices. For example, when you're overwhelmed at work or facing a personal conflict, instead of reacting impulsively, you pause. You remind yourself that your emotions are not the boss of you, you are. You take a step back, reflect on what's within your control, and choose your response deliberately. This small shift in perspective can transform how you experience life's ups and downs. So here's a question for you. What's one practice you could adopt to cultivate inner peace? Maybe it's taking 5 minutes each morning to reflect on what you're grateful for. Or perhaps it's learning to pause and breathe deeply before responding to a stressful situation. Whatever it is, remember that inner peace isn't a destination, it's a journey, and every small step you take brings you closer to it. Let's talk about humility, a quality the Stoics held in the highest regard. Figures like Seneca and Epictetus often emphasize that true wisdom begins with recognizing how little we truly know. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most powerful men in history, wrote extensively about the dangers of arrogance. In his Meditations, he warned, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." In other words, life is fleeting, and clinging to ego or self-importance only distracts us from what truly matters. Humility in Stoic philosophy isn't about diminishing yourself. It's about seeing yourself clearly without the distortion of pride or insecurity. So how does humility actually build confidence? It's counterintuitive, but when we let go of the need to prove ourselves or appear perfect, we free ourselves from the fear of failure. Think about it. If you're humble enough to admit you don't have all the answers, you open yourself to learning, growing, and improving. Confidence grows when we stop pretending and start embracing our imperfections. For example, imagine you make a mistake at work. Instead of deflecting blame or trying to cover it up, you own it, apologize, and focus on fixing it. That act of humility not only earns respect but also strengthens your self-assurance because you're acting with integrity. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The nearer a man comes to a calm mind, the closer he is to strength." Humility brings us that calmness by keeping our ego in check. It allows us to approach challenges with a clear mind, free from the noise of self-doubt or arrogance. So here's a question to reflect on. How could practicing humility enhance your confidence? How might it change the way you face challenges or interact with others? Take a moment to consider how embracing humility could be a stepping stone to a stronger, more grounded sense of self. Do you see challenges as obstacles, or do you see them as opportunities to grow? How you answer that question might just reveal the kind of mindset you're carrying through life. And here's the thing, Stoicism has a lot to say about this. It teaches us that cultivating a growth mindset isn't just helpful, it's essential for building long-term confidence and resilience. Epictetus, one of Stoicism's great teachers, once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." This simple yet profound idea is at the heart of the growth mindset. It's about shifting your perspective, seeing challenges not as roadblocks but as stepping stones. When life throws something difficult your way, instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you ask, "What can I learn from this?" That subtle shift in thinking can change everything. Think about it this way. Imagine you're trying to learn a new skill, like playing an instrument or coding. At first, it feels overwhelming. Your fingers fumble or the concepts seem impossible to grasp. But here's where a growth mindset comes in. Instead of saying, "I'm just not good at this," you remind yourself that every mistake is part of the process. Each error is a chance to improve, to get a little better than you were yesterday. That's Stoicism in action, focusing on what you can control, your effort and attitude rather than the outcome. Now here's a question for you. What's one area of your life where you could adopt a growth mindset? Maybe it's a project at work that feels out of your depth, or a personal goal you've been putting off because it seems too hard. Whatever it is, take a moment to reflect on how you've been approaching it. Are you seeing it as an obstacle or as an opportunity to grow? The choice is yours, and it's a powerful one. Because when you start to see challenges as chances to learn, you're not just building confidence, you're building a life of purpose and progress. Confidence is rooted in strong character. It's not something you can fake or borrow. It's built through consistent, virtuous actions. Stoicism teaches us that true confidence comes from within, from cultivating a character that stands firm even in the face of challenges. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most revered Stoic philosophers, often emphasized the importance of moral integrity. He believed that living a life aligned with virtue, being honest, courageous, just, and wise was the foundation of a strong and unshakable character. Think about it: when you act with integrity, even when it's difficult, you're not just doing the right thing, you're reinforcing your own sense of self-worth. For example, standing up for what's right, even when it's unpopular or inconvenient, is a powerful way to build character. It shows you value principles over comfort, and that kind of strength becomes the bedrock of your confidence. Stoicism reminds us that every decision, no matter how small, is an opportunity to practice virtue and shape who we are. So, what's one way you could strengthen your character today? Maybe it's speaking up when you'd rather stay silent, or choosing kindness when frustration tempts you to react harshly. These acts might seem small, but over time they add up. They shape the kind of person you become and the kind of confidence you carry. After all, confidence isn't just about how you feel in the moment. It's about knowing deep down that you're living in alignment with your values. And that's something no one can take away from you. Seneca once wrote, "Let us prepare our minds as if we'd come to the very end of life." At first glance, this might sound morbid or unsettling, but there's a profound wisdom hidden in these words. Reflecting on mortality isn't about dwelling on the end. It's about using that awareness to fuel how we live today. When we acknowledge that our time is finite, it pushes us to focus on what truly matters. It's like holding up a mirror to our lives and asking, am I spending my days in a way that aligns with my values? Am I living with intention, or am I drifting? Consider this. Imagine you're given a project with a tight deadline. Suddenly, every minute counts. You prioritize, you focus, and you make decisions with clarity because you know the clock is ticking. Reflecting on mortality works in a similar way. It sharpens your perspective, helping you cut through distractions and zero in on what's truly important. It's not about fear, it's about empowerment. When you accept the reality of limited time, you're more likely to take bold steps, set meaningful goals, and live with confidence because you're no longer waiting for someday. Take a modern example. Think about someone who decides to pursue a lifelong dream, like starting a business, writing a book, or traveling the world. Often, it's the realization that life is short that pushes them to take that leap. They stop saying, "I'll do it later," and start saying, "Why not now?" That shift in mindset is transformative. It's not about recklessness, it's about embracing the urgency of now to create a life that feels rich and purposeful. So, let me ask you this: how could reflecting on your mortality help you live more confidently? Maybe it's about letting go of the fear of failure, knowing that regret is far heavier than any mistake. Or perhaps it's about prioritizing relationships, experiences, and actions that align with your true self. When you live with the end in mind, you stop sweating the small stuff and start focusing on what gives your life meaning. And that, in itself, is a powerful source of confidence because you're no longer living for others' expectations or societal pressures. You're living for you. As we come to the end of this journey through the 20 Stoic lessons to build long-term confidence, let's take a moment to reflect on the timeless wisdom we've explored. These lessons aren't just ideas, they're tools for living. Each one, from embracing self-mastery to cultivating resilience, points us toward a deeper truth. True confidence comes from within. It's not about what happens to us, but how we choose to respond. The Stoics taught us that by focusing on what we can control, our thoughts, actions, and character, we can build a foundation of confidence that no external circumstance can shake. Think about it this way: confidence isn't something you wait for or hope to find. It's something you create through daily practice. It's in the small, consistent choices, choosing courage over fear, virtue over convenience, and growth over comfort. When we align ourselves with these principles, we step into a kind of confidence that doesn't waver, even in the face of life's uncertainties. It's a confidence rooted in self-awareness, resilience, and the understanding that we are enough just as we are. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." These words remind us that true strength and confidence come from mastering our inner world. It's not about controlling what happens to us, but about shaping how we interpret and respond to those events. This is the essence of Stoicism, and it's a lesson that can transform how you see yourself and the world. As you reflect on these 20 lessons, ask yourself, which ones resonate with you the most? Is it the idea of focusing only on what you can control? Or perhaps the practice of embracing challenges as opportunities for growth? Whatever it is, take that lesson and make it your own. Start small, apply it in your daily life. Confidence isn't built overnight, but with each step you'll find yourself growing stronger, more grounded, and more capable of facing whatever comes your way. Before we close, I'd love to hear from you. Which of these Stoic lessons spoke to you the most? How do you plan to apply them in your own life? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your insights might inspire someone else on their journey. And if you found value in this video, consider subscribing for more Stoic wisdom to help you navigate life with clarity and confidence. Thank you for joining me today, and remember, the power to build unshakable confidence is already within you. You just have to take the first step.